Hello there, welcome to another Fort Triumph video with Ungainly Titan. And I was originally going to continue the playthrough that I'd already started and I've shown in some previous videos. But I hadn't actually played it, we'll say, when I made the previous videos. However, the whole final game, the final half of the game really turns into kind of a tedious, fairly epic slog. And I just decided I'd rather talk about that, and I think it would be actually fairly boring to just watch me throw wave after wave of units at Goblin Town in order to kill one goblin creature every turn, to whittle down the numbers so that eventually I can reach the point where I can mount a final assault with my primary party. And my real issue with this is that this is okay occasionally. I think I've said this before in previous reviews of or previous videos that I've made on Fort Triumph. But since they changed the legendary playthrough behavior of the AI, before the AI was essentially started out super strong with very, very large force pool, and it then used that force pool very aggressively. So it conquered its own territory, and it arrived into your territory quite often with overwhelming force. And this was actually a problem in playability, in the sense that it could arrive in the first week with overwhelming force, and if you were unlucky and your party was in the way, it would just steamroller your party, steamroller over your over any other parties you had out there that happened to be in the way, and then steamroller into your town, and it was pretty much unstoppable. And then it was a question as to whether you had forces in the field that could retake the town. If you could retake the town, you could probably continue the fight and win eventually, even if it was a long, slow attritional slog, because you might not have any heroes, or might not have the mana to buy heroes with. But it could be done, at least if you were willing to do it and had the patience to do it. But if you didn't have any heroes or reasonable force in the field and you couldn't retake your town, that was it, you were finished. All you could do was just abandon the game and start again. Then they changed the AI, and the AI is supposed to employ better tactics. And the better tactics are supposed to allow the AI to be a bit more finesse in the battlefield. And I think that side of the tactical part of the AI works. I think the AI actually is a more challenging opponent in an actual battle than it used to be. There was a time, for instance, that Goblin Bombers, just to take the example there in front of us, were much less of a threat than they ought to be. That the AI's handling of Goblin Bombers was particularly poor, in that they tended to be extremely self-destructive, and they would charge up to you and detonate at the earliest opportunity. And in doing so, they would destroy allies. They do more harm to allies. You could actually position your units so the Goblin Bomber would actually do more harm to allies and contribute more to the destruction of the Goblin team than your own forces were doing. So that side of the AI tweaking has, I think, definitely seen an improvement in the behavior of the AI. But the other side of the AI equation, the kind of operational, strategic level, is worse, I think, in some respects, because it's a little too cautious. And what happens is, when you make contact with AI units now, generally at legendary level, it all follows the same pattern, and it's the fact that it follows the same pattern every time you play through that I think is the problem. The initial contact is with weak parties that are easily defeated, that are not a threat to your party, and then you come to the town, and you look at the town here, and you can see what the garrison structure is: 2 skirmishers, 4 raiders, 2 archers, or whatever they're called, 4 goblin bombers, 3 shaman, and 2 trolls, and that's a 5 skull garrison, even for my primary party. Now, just to give you some idea of how the skull system relates to how I fight, I couldn't beat a 5-skull battle. I couldn't win a 5-skull battle under any circumstances. I probably couldn't win a 4-skull battle. Certainly not in the first try. I might, if I got a really fortunate alignment of the enemy forces, win a 4-skull battle. But it wouldn't be a thing that I would normally risk. In the early game, I might, for a suitably high reward, if it was a case of I had the spare resources to do it. In other words, I could afford the loss. So, for instance, I don't know, there was a magic generator being garrisoned, and I had 2 full-strength parties that had 6 heroes in the field, and I might risk one of the hero teams for a prize of sufficient worth. But the chances are that I wouldn't win that fight. I probably wouldn't even win. A 3-skull fight, I reckon, was around 50-50 for me. And I do engage in them at the start of the game because you get have to. There's no choice in the matter. But I do regard it as I wouldn't regard it as a guaranteed win when I go in. So when you start getting lower than that the odds 2-skull and better is usually a win. Although I have lost heroes in 2-skull fights. They're not a pushover. It's really only a pushover when it gets down to like the 1-skull or half-skull or something like that. Or when you have actually got a fairly experienced team. I think it sometimes doesn't judge the experience of the team well. So you got to have a 2-skull fight with a very experienced hero team that's actually fairly easy. But a 2-skull fight with, say, normal creatures could actually be quite hard. But the trouble with this Yak Scuffle Goblin Garrison at the moment is that it's overwhelming in its defensive power. And by overwhelming, I mean it is powerful to the point that even with a hero team, if I went in, my hero team would only survive 1 round. I wouldn't be able to stun, and I might, the first turn, be able to stun enough of them with a hero team to survive a 2nd round. But I wouldn't survive the 3rd round because the abilities that I was using in the 1st round are on cooldown, or they're no longer available. They're 1st round one-off things. And in the 2nd round, the ranged units in the town would simply whittle down one of my heroes, and I'd lose a hero, and then I'd lose a hero in the 3rd round, and I'd lose a hero in the next round, and then it'd be all over. Or I might even lose 2 heroes in the 1st round. If I go in with normal creatures, say I go in with 3 brutes, I might get 1 kill at the start, and of a goblin, a low-level goblin unit, a skirmisher or a raider, and they're dead in the next round. They don't get to act the 2nd time. Similarly, even if I go in with 2 trolls and a goblin bomber, the effect of the fight's going to be the same. I go in, I might kill 1 unit, maybe 2 units with that kind of a force, and they're not going to survive a full round. This is kind of an ongoing, persistent pattern in the system, and it's the problem. Because it just makes the fight a big slog and a grind. It's not like it's a terribly difficult. It's not that there's no threat. I'm not going to lose as long as I'm careful. But it's going to be a very slow, grindy battle to win. And it's the fact that you're certain of the outcome long before. Like, I did 3 playthroughs at the end of the game just to see could I get more efficient at it. And in the 3rd one the first playthrough, which you get video footage from, was about 2.5 hours. The 2nd playthrough was 2 3/4 hours. So much more efficient. 3rd playthrough I managed it in 1 3/4 of an hour, I think. So that was more efficient. And it was basically was more patient. So what I did was I waited longer. Okay, the Goblin Town's garrison was actually stronger when I finally assaulted it. But the thing is, my initial assault had 2 waves, 2 separate parties where there was Troll Goblin Bomber combinations, and they managed to kill more in their invasions than they did in the previously, when I had only maybe one of them. And the reason that that particular combo can be so effective isn't so much that what they do, but the fact that the defending Goblin units tend to detonate their own Goblin Bombers to take down the Trolls quickly, and in doing so they cause considerable collateral damage to their own side. So you're effectively forcing the Goblins. The Goblins are actually contributing to their own defeat. So the next battle up will be a demonstration, or at least when I get around to the battle, of exactly what I'm talking about. So I'd have, eventually, depending on which version of the playthrough you're looking at, I would be basically, every chance I got, I'd be recruiting units. As soon as I had the money to do it, I'd be recruiting units. I would be buying buildings occasionally to maximize my Bitcoin output, so that I could recruit units faster. But the limiting factor really is the rate at which I could recruit units. Now, I could recruit the human units in my own town, and I tended to build up parties, either full parties leaving the town or parties with a single unit. And that single unit, their job was to go to the Goblin and Troll locations to pick up Goblin Bombers and Trolls. And then I would meet units up, swap them around, optimize them for their content, and sometimes to squeeze extra movement out of the system. And then I would finally have an array of units outside the town, and then I'd start making my assaults. And I'd just make assault after assault after assault. Sometimes the town might feel that it has enough units to actually make a counter sortie if there was a weak party outside the town. It doesn't seem to be a reliable thing. It doesn't always seem to do it, but it does it occasionally. When the Goblin actually makes an assault out of the town, they make a sortie. The first attack is usually an overwhelming attack. So it'll have all the big units, the Trolls and the Goblin Shaman and Goblin Bombers and whatnot. And the second attack, they'll usually make a second attack then if there's a second unit that's weak nearby. But the second attack could be actually just barely enough to defeat the force they're facing. And what you finish up with then is, you still have a strong garrison in the town, and still potentially too strong for the party to attack. But you have a weak party out in the field that, again, isn't really a threat. So, and it's the lack of threat side of things that I think makes the whole thing a rather kind of a boring exercise, because like I said, you know what the outcome is going to be. You just have to have the patience to wait for it. So what I've been doing in the background of all this conversation is I'm basically building up a chain of units that are going to be heading up towards Goblin Town in order to keep my supply of assault units steady. And I've also got to be units that are going to be the start of every week are empty of I've only got one member in the party, and their job is to collect at the start of every week from the Goblin villages and the Troll village the forces that I need to keep up the momentum, because you just need to keep throwing bodies at the problem. So this is the example now what I'm talking about, with a weak party to just go in to do a little bit of attrition. So you just look at the defending force. I mean, it just is overwhelming. So, but this unfortunate goblin that the brute is beside is going to die, because we can kill him in one round. In fact, I can kill him with the next attack. And we do. So he's dead. We've achieved our objective actually now. The rest of it is just see if we can do any further damage on the off chance that the unit might survive the round. A lot of the time they don't, and they won't on this particular occasion. I could go in with physics attacks at the very start and try and make stunning attacks, but it's a waste of time because it doesn't matter. I won't stun enough of the enemy to survive the round. There's just too many goblins. Now, and since the bleeding outs and stuff like that, you know, bleeding attacks and, you know, the trolls and stuff like that, I mean, there's just... And the trolls are very hard to stun. And they generally are separated, so that you have to hit them. Sometimes you can bang the trolls off each other, and then bang them off a terrain feature, you might stun them in one attack. But most of the time, to stun the trolls, you have to actually mount 2 movement attacks on them. That will cause them to be stunned, and usually the brutes don't have it, so it needs sort of 2 of the wizards. But then the wizards don't have the firepower to kill a unit outright. And the goblins, well, you know, at this stage they are pretty good at hitting stuff, and most of them won't get within range. But sometimes one of the goblin bombers goes a bit mad and blows himself up, and sometimes you get more than one kill out of the fight. And there you have it. So that is your typical goblin fight, and you just keep that up until you have the town warden down, that you can make your final assault. So to put it in another context, I suppose the way this game worked out, I think I made contact with the initial goblin parties around the end of week 2, start of week 3. I found Goblin Town in week 3 or week 4. I spent week 4, week 5 cleaning up and occupying anything around the Goblin Town that I could. Started my assaults around week 5, and week 7 to week 8, depending on which playthrough you look at. And usually probably well into week 7 before I was in a position to mount the final assault, and this is the final assault in the first run through of the end of the game. So you can see we had greatly reduced the goblin garrison, so they're down to the 2 trolls, what is it, 3 shaman, they're down to about half their original numbers. So you have 2 trolls, 2 shaman, skirmisher, and another, the ballista. They bought the ballista at that stage, and yes, another skirmisher. And that's, so they're down to what, 6 units out of the original 14 or 15 units. They probably would have had the opportunity to buy another, I don't know, 5 or 6 units over the course of the period that I was constantly whittling away at them. So the overall garrison that I would have, it probably never more than what was originally there, which was 14 or 15 units, but it was replaced at certain elements of it were replaced over periods of time, so that I killed a lot more goblins than, you know, the numbers, should we say, would suggest at any given period when you go in and during the attacks in the town. But I didn't keep track of exactly how much they were buying in any given week or anything like that. Other than that, the fact that I knew that I had to sort of throw more, make sure that I kept the attrition rate that was high enough that I was able to overcome their economy, their replacement ability. But it was just keep at it, keep slogging away, and eventually you whittle them down. And when you whittle them down, you'll find that you can just take them out. So the savage was in trouble there. Just got attacked by the two trolls. However, one of the trolls isn't going to survive, and the other one is going to be stunned, which takes him out of the action. And the thing is, once you start whittling down the numbers, you can keep control of the fight at this stage. The fact that I've lost the savage, it detracts from the victory somewhat, but I'm not going to complain about it because I'm going to take the win. The enemy are down to 2 units at this stage. So it's just a matter of keeping things under control until we finish it off. So I'm going to, what is it? Can I move him there? I don't know. It won't trigger an attack of opportunity anyway, which is what I think I'm exploring to see if I can do. I really need to expand that teleport, which I never get around to getting anymore. I think they've cut down the levels of what you can achieve, the upgrades that are available at the current level of the game, so that you're not maxing out or getting overwhelmingly powerful parties. That in the campaign, over the longer period of the campaign, there will be upgrades available, that higher tier upgrades again that aren't currently available. So, the other thing I would apologise is that there is issues with the video, but I've been experimenting with OBS as my recording software, and I think I've come to the conclusion that OBS is what's the word? It's too heavy for my my PC. That I don't think my PC is up to running OBS in the game in the background. And this is what's causing my recording issues. That I just I could probably mess around with the bit rates, but I'm not that technically proficient with the software. So at the moment, I think I'll stick with what I was doing before and just convert. It just adds a lot of time to the preparation of videos. But I will use Shadowplay and convert it from the variable frame rate format of Shadowplay to a fixed format. Anyway, it's now a question of preventing my paladin from becoming stunned, so that she can go and finish off the ballista. And we have the final round combat. It's all over this stage. Put a fireball to knock some hit points up to ballista, and the paladin just walk in and smash it, and it's all over. So that's it. You just bang away and you will win. So in conclusion, from my opinion, the skirmish game needs a bit more work, and I'll probably need to go and look at the campaign game and see how things pan out there, and possibly also look at the other levels. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like and a share. Feel free to comment, discuss this either in the forums or Discord or wherever. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.